I request everyone to maintain silence, for we are about to begin with the second session of the day. And those participants who are outside, I request them to kindly take their seat. Right. It appears we have already went past the scheduled time, so I'll quickly, without further ado, request the panel to come on stage. The session will be on causation, free will, and indeterminism in Buddhist philosophy and quantum physics. May I request the chairperson for the session, Professor Renuka Singh ji, to come on the dais and take her seat. May I also request the respective speakers, Venerable Keshe Gojir Abdullah, Dr. Ravindra Nagendra, and Dr. S. Parvin, to come on the dais and take their respective seats. Okay. I'll read out a brief introduction about our chairperson for this session. Professor Renuka Singh is a sociologist who taught at the Center for the Study of Social Systems, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She is the director of Tushita Mahayana Meditation Center, New Delhi, and the chairperson of Punjabi Sahitya Sabha and Center for Social Research, New Delhi. She has also been a research fellow at Oxford University and UGC senior research scientist. She has lectured in many foreign universities and authored and edited over 15 books in the area of gender studies, diaspora, and Buddhist studies. Before I request Renuka ji to lead the session, I would like to make a quick announcement. We are happy to announce that we will be publishing the program proceedings of this conference. So I request all the speakers to kindly submit their papers by the end of December, if possible. So, Renuka ji, please lead the session.
So, good afternoon, everybody. After this sumptuous lunch, I hope you don't feel very drowsy during the session and remain awake. At the outset, I would like to thank Geshe Dojidando, Director of Tibet House, for organizing this conference and inviting me to be part of it. Thank you, Geshe. I think this is a very important event because Geshe has succeeded in bringing together both scientists and philosophers together, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., to come and have a dialogue, because usually it has been maintained that you can have a monologue when you are coming from different disciplines. It's very difficult to have a dialogue. So at least, we are attempting to have a dialogue with each other. And even if we don't succeed there, I think we'll have plenty to learn from each other. So I'm very glad that in this conference, the role of psyche and free will in formulating the physical theory has been taken up. Thus, the understanding of functioning of the brain becomes important, and investigation in relation to the principle of superposition, decoherence, and cognition gains significance. And I'm sure that this seminar will provoke the participants to thoughtfulness and make them more reflective. However, since I am a sociologist or a social scientist, I was, wondering about the relevance of this conference theme, and especially our session's theme, causation, free will and predeterminism in Buddhist philosophy and quantum physics, in the context of society. There are so many changes going on around us. So what relevance does it have to our life? So I'm going to maybe sensitize you all a little bit towards the societal issues, that we have, which we need to think about as well. With increasing regularity, we have heard the last half of the 20th century referred to as a post-age, post-industrial, post-metaphysical, post-structuralist, post-modern, and so on. Also the end or decline of modernity, political philosophy, ideology of the West, and of history. There is a brooding sense that something new and novel is happening. In fact, people say that there is a crisis in liberalism today. And thus, without history, the main question is, how can we will an egalitarian ethic? I think this is a very, very disturbing question. How is one form of willing more compelling than others? Unless we resort to force, its softer cousin majority tyranny torments us. Wherever we turn, there is a cacophony of voices. You look at the media, the social sites, etc. Everything seems adrift, yet strangely unchanging. We decry the absence of leadership and have grown weary of the endless, occasionally hyperbolic restatements of problems. The superabundance of recipes is at the heart of the problem. So we human beings have no choice but to live our lives on the evanescent margins between past and future. More to the point, a limited number of possible futures exist in potentia at any point in time. While given the inertial force of the past, a great number of possibilities have become highly improbable. Today, we are going to plumb and develop the profound corpus of Buddhist thought in relation to quantum physics, neuroscience. But for sure, we are in for a lot of surprises. In this phase of irrationalism, anxiety, and lost hope, contemporary postmodernism is fundamentally a sign of disintegration, of transition, of waning faith in the modern ideas of reason and progress, and the Enlightenment project in general, and represents the intense form of modern self-dissatisfaction. What is needed is to think toward the philosophical possibilities that will exist in the future and consider how they might support the pursuit of the just, the decent, the good, and the noble. So there are one or two questions which have been troubling me, and I would like to formulate them right now. How can I be my own self and exist in an authentic way in this world that I'm inhabiting? This is a question that perplexes me. Because there is a possibility of authentic self-determinism happening in society when we think in terms of economic determinism, when we think in terms of social-cultural determinism, or technological determinism. So, what is this authentic self that we are talking about, and how do we get affected by the dialogue that is taking place over here? And finally, this question of how do we transform all aspects of our experience and develop the all-embracing awareness of the essential emptiness of experience and phenomena. This is another question which I find is very challenging today. So, may I now invite Venerable Geshe Doji Dando to make his presentation on causation, free will, and predeterminism in Buddhist philosophy. I will just introduce Geshe-la, even though he doesn't need any introduction. Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdol is currently the director of Tibet House, New Delhi, the cultural center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. While being assigned with the responsibility of the directorship of Tibet House, he also gives regular lectures and leads philosophy classes in Tibet House and other places as well. He travels widely within India and abroad to teach Buddhist philosophy, psychology, logic, and practice. He has also worked on several books. As assigned by the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he visited US in 2008 to work with Professor Paul Ekman on His Holiness's the Dalai Lama's book Ethics for the New Millennium Part 2 and the book series Art of Happiness, which were jointly written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, such as The Graded Path. He has written a number of papers for national and international conferences on topics such as the paradox of the brain and the mind, and ultimate reality according to Arya Arjuna. He is currently in the process of writing two important books, one entitled Journey into the Paradox of the Brain and Mind, and the other, What Constitutes the Ultimate Reality? The Effects of Understanding the Ultimate Reality. Thank you very much, Geshe-la. I now invite you to please come and make your presentation.
Good afternoon, every one of you. Respected Chairperson, Professor Venerable, and everyone here. To this topic meaning here, for this session, we have the causation, free will, and predeterminism. And in the booklet, program booklet, it says indeterminism. This is typo. Okay, so please correct it. It should be predeterminism or determinism. So first, when I was in class 12, when quantum physics was first introduced, I was so fascinated when the concept of the randomness was introduced. Randomness. And then later on, after about then joining the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics and then joining Jebong Losing Monastery. So there, with very rigorous studies of philosophy, psychology, logic, and so forth. And there was one teacher, one of my incredibly great teachers, who was the Geshe colleague, Geshe meaning the PhD, the doctoral. Geshe colleague of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, later became the chief abbot of both the Jebong Losing and Gulmohar monastic institutions. He had a student, one American lady who was coming from America, all the way from America to receive teachings from him, and I was translating for her. At one point, she sent some emails, and then I was reading the emails for my teacher, and one of the emails said that her husband happened to be a physicist in America, and she was always nagging her husband that you should study Buddhism, you should become Buddhist. This was what she was nagging her the physicist's husband to follow Buddhist path. And one day the husband asked her, okay, I'll be ready to become Buddhist, provided you can give me one answer. Okay, anyone who can guess what this question might be from a physics point of view? So she was so excited now. Finally, I succeeded in converting my husband into Buddhism. Okay, I'm ready. She thought that she knows Buddhism more than her husband. So she thought that she is the legitimate person to give answer to this question. And the husband said, okay, so Buddhism accepts law of karma. And she said, yes. If you accept law of karma, where is the room for free will? If you can give this answer to me, right now I'll become Buddhist. And she did not have the answer. So she instantly sent this question to her teacher, which I was taking care of, emails, and I printed the question out, and then went to my teacher and said, this is a question from this lady. And I thought I was also very excited to listen to his answers, and he was such a brilliant logician and a philosopher, and I was so excited that this is a very challenging question, and then now here is somebody who is the right person, who is the right one to give this answer. I was so excited. And then he said he just listened to it very carefully. I was translated from English to Tibetan. He listened to it very carefully, and he said, Dorji, give some answers. Finished. Okay, so I didn't get the answer from him. Okay, so this is how this topic is so dear to my heart. And then number two, that Professor C.C. Roy, in fact, he picked up this question, this topic. And I remember, I'm not too sure, I don't think this is the place. It was the IIC in the International Center, where we invited Professor Nicholas Gissin, one of the top-ranking physicists, a very close friend of Professor C.C. Roy. So he, in the course of his lecture, he mentioned something about this, the determinism versus free will. And I was intrigued. So he's a great physicist, a world-renowned physicist, and he's also not only interested, he's bringing up this issue. Okay, that is a very interesting topic, and later on, that the more we explore into this topic, we come to see that this is a challenge for many of the streams, many of the disciplines, physics, neuroscience, Buddhist philosophy, and all forms of philosophy. So this is a big question. And then exploring more, I can realize that this was a debate which was so prominent, which was so pervading in the West, pertaining to the concept of God. Does God know everything? If he knows everything, where's the free will? He's already determined. He knows what's going to happen tomorrow. He knows what's going to happen next year, 10 years later, 1 million years later. Everything's fixed. So there's no free will. Where's the room for free will? All these debates were happening since then amongst the great Western philosophers. Okay, so this is what we need to keep in mind. So here we see that causation, free will, and predeterminism. Causation means cause-effect. Cause-effect. Everything is governed by the cause-effect principle, which means that what the effect is going to be determined by cause. And then say this cause is also an effect with respect to its own cause. You go like this, there's no room for free will, there's no room for free choice. It's already determined. Okay, so then the next point is free will. So between these two things, then whether things are predetermined or there's something that is in your hand that you can decide as to what you will become, that what you want to become in the future. Okay, so these are the forms of debates, very serious debates happening there. The first one, as you can see, is the debate in the West. Theological fatalism versus free will. Say the fatalism, meaning that it is your fate. Nothing, you have nothing in your hand. Everything already determined. It's just your fate. Theological fatalism. And then versus the free will. And then debate in the East. Karma versus free will. Karma. Say for example, karma. Okay, say you failed an exam. You did not study so well. You failed an exam. Oh no, mom, what should I do? It is my karma. right? So there, again, we see that it's not in my hand. It's not, the karma decided that I failed an exam. So karma versus free will. How to reconcile these two things. And then number 3, neuroscience. In neuroscience, mapping the free will in the brain. So if there's a free will, whose free will? My free will. What is that free will? It's mental state, mental function. If it's a mental function, it must be brain function. Where is the brain? These are the 3 very important pertinent debates pertaining to the particular discipline versus the free will. Okay, so let's say that if free will is not there, so the way we account for things on the basis of cause and effect relationship, then what about these values? What about these processes? What about these, say, the very important mental functions like sense of responsibility? Say, you cannot blame karma. You cannot blame God. It is you who have the right to do things. You have the free will to do things, and you did not take your responsibility. So how will you account for the responsibility? How will you account for the praise, right? Whether you praise me or not, right, is already determined, right? Whether I become happy or unhappy, it's already determined. So why do you have to praise to make somebody else happy? That the guilt, unwholesome deeds, judgments, advice, persuasion, deliberation, prohibition, all these things, how can I account for these very important factors of a life unless you see a room for free will? Okay, so this is I can just quickly finish everything in 5 minutes, but the audience, we may not get what is intended. So for that matter, let's see that the free will, want to do something, I have the choice to do what I like, to do things. That is when you interact with the world. When you interact with the world, so the world with which you interact, that is the ontological reality, the reality out there, so which physics and philosophy deal with. And then the free will, where is this free will? Within my mind stream, or with my brain, with my mind stream. That is to do with the subject. So we have to know the 2 things, interplay between the 2 things, as I discussed this morning. Now, this is very important, pertaining to the ontological reality, as to what constitutes ontological reality. This is so important before we deal with the free will concept. Say, we see that the undeniably, we all had lunch, except for maybe some people who might have a very special need for some special food. Otherwise, most of us, I hope you enjoyed the lunch. So, lunch is one thing that we have seen, we have partaken in this, we have enjoyed. That is one thing. But the same thing, the same lunch which we enjoyed, if you look at it on the microscopic level, we see there's just a bunch of electrons, protons, neutrons. And we never say that, okay, and then if I ask you that, what did you have? Did you have electrons, protons, neutrons? Right? Of course, nobody can deny this fact. This is a fact. Yet at the same time, then having a bunch of pebbles for your lunch is also electrons, protons, neutrons. On that level, there's no difference. But on the conventional level, there's a difference. Bunch of electrons, protons, the pebbles. This is a disaster. Bunch of, let's say, the good food, like what, chapati, rice, and then what, all these vegetables and so forth. This is very good, a good treatment. So there is a distinction there. So this distinction, which on a very subtle level, macro level, no distinctions there, but on a macro level, you see the distinction. So that distinction that you see in the macro level is what in loose sense we call it conventional truth. A truth that makes sense to us on the conventional level. On the conventional world, we speak about, oh, I had good food, good lunch, and so forth. So that is conventional level. Whereas you go in deeper you go deeper to analyze, where is this lunch? It's just electrons, protons, neutrons. That's also true. So on that level, we are going to the macro level, which we are exploring into the ultimate truth. So this is where in Buddhism there's a mention of the true truths. So the switch from the ultimate to the conventional. In other words, what Professor Sisi Roji this morning was asking as to what is the logical pattern by which to see the switch from the quantum reality to the classical reality. So that we have to know these two realities, conventional truth and ultimate truth. And pertaining to the main topic, which is causation, free will, and predeterminism. So there, we need to know what is known as the 3 levels of dependent origination. 3 levels. The first one is dependent origination of causation. So causation, the 3 parts. First of the 3 parts of the main theme for this, the afternoon first session, the causation. That's the first one. Then the second one is dependent origination of whole and parts. How things in the form of something as one and a single entity comes into being by dependence on these various parts. For example, this hall, this beautiful hall, that's the one single entity that comes into being by dependence on the various parts, like the ceiling, the floor, the walls, the beautiful, say the screens, and then the backdrop, and so forth. So that is the second level. And third level is dependent origination of mere mental designation, meaning that everything that exists in this universe, everything that exists in this universe, they don't exist the way they appear to us. They appear in one way, and we think that they exist that way, but in actuality, the reality is very different. They don't exist the way they appear to us. They exist very differently. So that is number 3, that everything, instead of being subjective, they all exist subjectively, all coming from your mind. And how they come from mind, this is a very separate discussion. Okay, and now we see that the same conventional truth of the 3 levels of dependent origination, which we discussed just now, the first two fall under the category. If you understand the first 2, they will lead you to the understanding of the conventional truth. It will take you towards what the conventional truth is. In other words, they will lead you to deal with the conventional reality. And then to get to the 3rd level, which is the ultimate truth, the micro ultimate truth, it is only through getting to the 3rd level of dependent origination, which is only through imputation, only through mental projection, things exist, otherwise nothing really exists from the object. Okay, so this is the basic ground for us to explore this dilemma between causation and the free will, and then leading to whether or not there is predeterminism. Okay, so this morning I did mention very briefly, and in fact the physicist this morning, the lady physicist over there, so she also briefly touched on this area, that the quantum physics and relativity theory, so generally speaking, nowadays of course even the quantum physics, the mechanism quantum physics or the quantum reality is what we can see on the macro level as well. But generally speaking, we see that these two, the physics, relativity theory and quantum physics, while the relativity theory operates on the macro world and the quantum physics operate on the macro world, and trying to unite the two, that is one of the greatest challenge of the humanity as of now. So what we have in physics, relativity theory and quantum physics, in Buddhist philosophy, there is conventional analysis, conventional truth, and the ultimate truth, the 2 truths. So these two truths, for example, let's say this water, this object in my hand, This will be my hand. So the same thing displays two truths. The one that you see as a water. And then you go deeper, you see that this water is not really coming from the object, it's really from a mind. Because what it is just a bunch of, first of all, it is H2O. And then this hydrogen is also made of the proton, one neutron and one electron. And then likewise oxygen. And then in short, they're all nothing but constituted of the elemental particles, electrons, protons, neutrons. So on that level, the water disappears. The water is really empty from that level. So that perception we call it ultimate analysis to explore where this water is on that level. On that level, the water makes no sense. So that analysis is known as ultimate analysis. Whereas now at the moment when I show you this and I ask you what this is, you say this is water. So this is what you say is a very different frame of reference, which is the conventional analysis. So depending on which analysis you employ, you will see the two truths. Say depending on the ultimate analysis, you will see the ultimate truth. Depending on the conventional analysis, you will see the conventional truth. So the same object displays two truths depending on which analysis you employ. For example, say the mother, what is her name? The chemist, Nobel laureate lady. Mary Curie. That's a Mary Curie. So Mary Curie is mother with respect to her daughter, but she's a daughter with respect to her mother. So it's just a frame of reference. So what frame of reference to employ, and then that will determine what the object is, independent of the frame of reference of the observer. The object doesn't make any sense. So with this in mind, say we see that these two truths, conventional truth and ultimate truth, while these two are the two truths of the same object, but these two are mutually exclusive. Meaning that what is conventional truth is not ultimate truth. What's ultimate truth cannot be conventional truth. These two are mutually exclusive, while at the same time, these two are the two truths of the same object. So that is what which is very clearly indicated in Heart Sutra, where it says form is empty, empty is the form is more than emptiness, empty is more than form. Okay, so from this what we have learned is the two truths, there is a disparity in terms of being mutually exclusive, not being mutually inclusive. They are being mutually exclusive. What is conventional truth cannot be ultimate truth. What is ultimate truth cannot be conventional truth, because these two cannot be united. Okay. 2 minutes. Okay, now I'll then switch to the main point. Okay. Okay, so the free will, I thought that we understood that. Okay, the free will, the Buddha said, you are the master of yourself. Who else is there as your master? The one who is well tamed is wise and liberated. So here, there's a very clear indication of the free will there. Buddha said that finally it depends on you, right? Whether you're going to be happy, whether you're going to be suffering, it's entirely up to you. That is, he's indicating to your free will. Now the question is, if there is a free will, then what about karma? What about karma, right? What about karma? So the karma concept is a very, very complex, it's an interwoven a thing of two things. Okay, I'll go quick here. Okay, karma. When you speak about karma, people mix the two things up. Karma and the karmic result. Karmic result should not be thought of as a karma. Karma is the cause for the karmic result. So people mix up two things. We are not to mix up two things. With the karma, if you really understand karma so well, free will is there in karma. Without free will, you cannot account for what karma is. Karma means intention. Karma, as the with the earlier thing, with the earlier the here presentation, physical, verbal, karma is action. Action that you do physically, verbally, and mentally. This is karma. And what makes you drive into these reactions is by the intention. So that intention, that is a free will. That is a free will. Right? So that intention decides. For example, let's say, okay, what do you do now? Okay, so if you're interested, we can have more discussions. I will just jump to the main point, right? So all these things, more like this. Okay, so let's say, let's say this water in my hand. Do you think that I'm going to drink this or not? Do you think that I'm going to do this or not?
We don't know.
Huh?
We don't know.
It's your free will, right? It's your free will. So the point that I like to make here is that, to make it very quick, is that free will, let us not try to define in our own ways. Free will is a concept which is used by the common people in the conventional world. You have to keep the definition, the meaning of the free will, the way that is used by the conventional world. Let us not define in our own words. So, according to conventional understanding, when I say that, what is free will? Okay, am I going to drink this water or not? You say it's up to you. It's up to you means that you cannot say yes, you cannot say no. Right? If you say no, I'll drink it. If you say yes, I'll not drink it. So this is where I'm using the free will. This is how the conventional world understands free will. And you Google search how the free will is determined by the philosophers, how the free will is determined by the neuroscientists, how the free will is determined by physicists. You see that they have their own definitions. This is, what I will say is that this is totally unwise. Water, if you want to define water, you have to define water how that is used in the conventional world. Likewise, free will, we should not waver from defining it the way it is used in the conventional world. So this must fit with how this free will is used in the conventional world. With this, having said that, okay, so I drink it. I drink it. So you say, okay, so you choose to drink. Yes, I chose to drink. Okay, so this is where I use free will. You're getting it? Now, with this, the next question, you can ask the next question. Why did you drink? I said, I was a little thirsty. Right? I was a little, I thought that somebody was going to say that we would drink it. Or if somebody tells me that you are going to drink it, I'm deliberately not going to drink it. Because nobody said that, I drank it. I chose to drink it. So why did you drink it? Because I felt a little thirsty and it's fine. Right? So now there, what I'm saying is that on this free will definition, I use a free will. So this, what is overlap, what is on the surface is the free will, and what underscores the free will, there's a causation. There's no contradiction. What's on the surface is the free will, because I use the free will. Right? And if you ask me, yes, why did you use the free will? Because I was a little thirsty. I give the reasons. So that's a causation. So there's no contradiction. In other words, what I'm saying is that with the two truths, lunch, delicious lunch, this is on one reality. You go deeper, the concept of lunch disappears. It becomes electrons, protons, neutrons. That's also reality, both a reality. But if you think of the lunch just in the form of electrons, protons, neutrons, there's no difference between the lunch and the bunch of pebbles. So whereas the lunch makes difference, this is very different from a bunch of pebbles. So that difference makes sense not on the subtle level, not on the macro level. It makes sense on the macro level. On the macro level, there's a free will. On the macro level, there's a causation. There's no contradiction. Thank you.
Very interesting paper. Now I invite Professor Vendor Nagenyo to make his presentation on indeterminism, free will, and causation in neuroscience. Professor Vendor Nagenyo is a professor and head of physiology at JIMS Gadak. He is a physiologist with special interest in neurophysiology, sleep, and yoga. He presented many papers at various prestigious conferences in India and abroad. He published widely in many peer-reviewed journals. He was awarded APPI Prakruti Mandir Prize for research in yoga. He was also a recipient of Mind and Life Institute Fellowship for Summer Research School in Garrison Institute. He is a regular volunteer at the Ramakrishna Ashram. I request you to make a presentation.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I thank Vishila, Tibet House, and more specifically Professor Cecil Roy, making me a part of this wonderful event. And I should definitely thank Cecil Roy a lot. If not for this particular event, probably I would have not really read so much of free will that I'm for preparing of this particular the presentation. Because of my interest is more on sleep, cognition, and of course on meditation studies. So there is no doubt, yes, the consciousness and the free will plays a very important role in our day-to-day behavior, and especially understanding the role of this consciousness and cognition, everything from the sleeping brain perspective. So now we know that free will, our day-to-day routine interaction with our external environment, and also with the internally generated motivations or planning of our behavior, is endowed with a sense of free will, which has a lot of implications as far as the sense of an agency or a sense of responsibility for an individual, and also from a societal perspective when it comes to ethics, law, justice, and so many other things. So that's why understanding of the free will is very important. But even though this dialogue of free will has been happening since centuries and since decades, so like that of the consciousness, the free will, everything, even though they have an overlap, and I'm very sure this discussion will be continuing for eternal. It's very difficult really to come with any concrete, the deterministic of conclusion probably. But now I'm going to give you only the perspective from the neuroscience point of view. So my framework is always into neuroscience. And see, when a subject perceives, okay, that I move my hand, and I want to just to try to understand this concept of free will, I would like to focus only on the motor behavior of our day-to-day movement. Because this is how, from the neuroscience point of view, we can study it, probably. Now, see, there are three important things. If you look into any clinical scenario, if you happen to visit any neurologist or a doctor, so he will flex your limb and he will see, okay, how is the tone and all those things. No doubt, yes, there is a movement, but this movement doesn't give a sense of, okay, I am moving this movement, but it's only a clinician having, and it's a passive movement. But the clinician understands, okay, he is moving the patient's hand. Or similarly, you have another, probably we have this, couple of us, we have undergone the reflex testing where a knee hammer, they take and they put on reflexes on patella and all those things. Even though it's a very, there is a movement of one particular part of muscle, like knee or biceps or whatever it is, but still the patient doesn't feel, okay, he is responsible for that particular movement. The sense of agency is not there. So if you can understand the physiology of this, all the sensory input that comes when we elicit the reflexes of either the knee reflex or the biceps reflex or the passive, these sensory inputs, even though it goes, but it doesn't go to the brain. It will be at the spinal cord level. Why? But if I actively move, I will get the sense, okay, I moved the hand. But if somebody moves my hand, as a subject, I don't get the sense, okay, I moved the hand. So why I want to tell you this is very important is only because brain is a very essential part that should be there in the system, the physiological system, for the subjective sense of, okay, as an agency that, okay, I am responsible for something or of my behavior. So that's what the message that I want to give with this. Now, if you look at the simple motor behavior, so there are multiple parts in the brain, right? You have a pre-assembly region, M1, so many things where in certain part of the brain, okay, there is a planning happens, and you have a sensory input that is coming to certain part of the brain, like a pre-assembly region. Then this information go to the just adjacent region where, which is called as M1, where from there, the execution happens. So this is very, very facts, and it's a reproducible facts, and nobody can deny these facts. So you have very specific regions. Among these regions, so if you ask the question, where is this sense of agency or a sense of I or a sense of me executing my control over the behavior is located or it comes, it's a multi-billion-dollar question. We don't know. Why we cannot understand? Because from the neuroscience point of view, we are understanding the brain from the system point of view. Because it has a huge network, right? So we are recording from those particular network. So if you look at the free will, so dissecting the free will into different components, can we understand the different neuroscience perspective of free will? Now, there are three different components. Probably ability, so you have two options. You decide about one particular option. Okay, I have two roads to choose. I decide road A to go forward, but I don't want road B. So I decide, number one. So you have an ability to do otherwise. Then, not only about deciding, you take the responsibility of deciding it as an agency. Yes, I decided, that's what I meant. Number two. And why you decided, there should be a rationality behind that. So these three plays a very important role to understand free will, because if there is a dissociation of these three components, we can see a lot of clinical scenarios that happens in the neurology and psychiatry. Now, so main challenge for the free will is determinism. So it says all mental phenomena and actions are directly or indirectly causally produced according to the laws of nature by the previous events that lie beyond the control of agents. Now, so is a determinism is a challenge to the free will. If you look at the different level in which the brain has been evaluated, right? So we know the most functional unit of the brain is a neuron, and below the neuronal level, okay, you have a lot of channels, many quantum level and everything is there. Billions and billions of these neurons, it forms a good network, and it forms a flesh called as brain. And through the interaction of this systemic level is what the behavior comes. So we are understanding the brain at different levels. So more subtle level, the emerging is the level of understanding how a single channel that is expressed on the neural membrane at the quantum level, and you go to the behavior level where all our emotions, everything about our personalities emerges out of the brain. So at this point of time, when you look at the technology in which the brain has been evaluated from the system point of view, it has its own limitations. Say, for example, if we record an electrical activity, keeping the electrodes on the scalp, it has a very good temporal resolution, but very bad spatial resolution. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? It can give you an information like online information, that is what is happening in the brain, but if you record electrical activity, but it fails to give from where actually this is originating from. But if you scan, say for example, you have an fMRI, MRI, all those scans, these can probably give a good spatial resolution, right? It can give an information from which part of the brain, okay, this particular thing is coming, but it is not very sensitive enough to give like an online information. So at what time actually it is coming. So this time concept in the working of the different neural network is very, very important. So probably we need a lot of technological advancement to understand the brain, where it can give an online information of very small time gap of the event that is happening in the brain itself. So we have many such things. Now, so with all these limitations, a lot of people have really worked about the concept of understanding free will. So most very classical golden paper that is being discussed everywhere is the Libet's that experiment. So Libet experiment, you have a subject, there is a clock, so you are supposed to mark whenever he sees the clock and he recorded age. So what is the observation of Libet's? Libet observed that there is an electrical activity that is picked up from the scan even before the movement happens. Even before there is a conscious intention of a person, thus yes, I'm going to move, and there is a movement, even before this there is an electrical activity that comes up. Now the all question that raises is, what is this electrical activity that was recorded even before the conscious intention of movement and the movement? So is a big debate. Still, it's a debate that is going on. And this particular debate in those days, they told okay, there is nothing called as free will, because the brain determines your action. So brain has planned your action. It is not that you as an individual, you consciously perceive that I have done it, because electrical activity in the brain has been recorded even before the intention of to move. And what is the duration? Duration is around between 500 milliseconds to 550 milliseconds before. So everything is in terms of a very small unit of time. But then the question comes, what about the volition or the veto power? Will it be possible for consciously for me to change to agree or disagree with the instruction that is given? So we saw Geshe wanted to drink the water. Even before he decided that I want to drink the water, okay, there is a potential that is coming up in this one area of the brain. So we call it as RP, that is then still, even though it is less than 500 milliseconds before Geshe-la's conscious intention, but within 200 milliseconds of that, he could able to change his conscious effort to do it or not to do it. But if the decision would have taken after 200 milliseconds, studies have shown it's not possible. So 200 milliseconds is being taken as a very critical period to not to have that veto power or the volitional power. So this is the overall view of what is called as readiness potential, has been described by Libet. Not only this duration of this what is readiness potential changes if there is already a pre-planned movement, or while doing some action there should be some modulation to take place. So this particular the duration of readiness potential it changes. Now, what is this readiness potential comes from? So it's not only the recording from the scalp. So people have recorded from the unitary recordings from the single neuron of the specific areas of the brain, and it also coincided. If you look at the second graph, it also coincided that along with the readiness potential, there is also increment of this signal in those specific areas of the brain. Not only that, the neurotransmitters that are responsible for this decrement, right? So it is called as dopamine. Dopamine also increases. So you have a readiness potential that is coming before the intention, that is associated with the increase of the dopamine. Now, what is the function of this dopamine? Dopamine is associated, with the planning, the judgment, and estimation of time. So that's why any the medical conditions where there is a decrease in dopaminergic levels, they have the impairments of certain these fine cognitive abilities, right? So this readiness potential has been thought could be one of where it disproved. There is nothing called as so-called as free will, and brain determines, right, your actions. But subsequently, many experiments were done. Now, the behavior of this readiness potential was stereotypical, even in the non-motor task. Now, what do you mean by this non-motor task? I just plan the motor task. When I record, same potential is recorded, whether that is executed as a motor behavior or not. Number one, it also is there in the non-motor. Number two, studies have shown that these readiness potential exist even in the hypnotical conditions, under hypnosis also, where that the sense of an agency of I am doing it is not present. Still readiness potential is there. Number three, suppose if you look, with the advanced meditation practice, we can modulate the brain the way we want. But when you compare to the non-meditators and meditators, still this behavior and the slope and the amplitude of readiness potential is the same. So irrespective of the training or the neuroplasticity event that happens in the brain, irrespective of whether you are conscious or unconscious, irrespective of whether you execute the movement or you don't execute the movement, this particular recording of readiness potential will be present. So all this have clearly shown that this readiness potential by the Libet, which he showed that there is no free will, it is not associated with the free will, but it is associated with the very deterministic brain processes that happens in planning of the movement. Number one. Number two. So as I told, the readiness potential was only of the 500 to 550 milliseconds or something like that. Now, in the advancement in these, the technology of analysis of the working of the brain, it has been recorded that two important areas of the brain, frontopolar cortex and the cingulate cortex, it lights up even the 7 seconds even before a conscious choice is experienced. When a conscious intention for me to move, right, even 7 seconds before this, there is some activity in some part of the brain. Now, if you look at in a systemic way of the brain, how it gets connected, where the readiness potential is recorded, right, it is in the premotor cortex. The 7 second is what is recorded in the subcortical level, below the cortex, it in the anterior cingulate or in the frontopolar cortex. And this anterior cingulate and the frontopolar cortex has been shown that it is associated with the planning and for the planning. So when Libet recorded that readiness potential, right, it was not the potential that originated in that part of the brain, but it is received. But the signal was projected to that part of the brain which was originated somewhere 7 seconds before, right? Somewhere in the deep inside the brain. So that is to say that even before the conscious intention, okay, there is some planning that is happening. But planning happens. But for the conscious perception of that plan, okay, comes sometimes later. So they say that this conscious perception is just an impose on the consciousness for us to get the subjective feeling, okay, I planned or I did something. Now, so that's why, so, and also there are experimental evidences to show that, but my conscious perception that the sense of an agency that I planned and I executed the movement, even it comes even after execution of the movement also. So if the conscious perception comes even after execution of the movement, so then David Chams, based on his experiments, he completely ruled out that the consciousness as such doesn't have any role to play in your free will at all. Because the experiments have shown that your conscious perception, okay, in the brain is imposed even after execution of the movement. But I'm talking about the time scale, which is even we can't even imagine, right? Like that. But there are certain other things. I told you about the first criteria for the free will is to choose between the multiple options that are available. Now all these days, right, we have discussed the free will that choose one particular thing, but we have to understand. Brain acts more on inhibitory in nature, it is not excitatory in nature. The different networks of the neural networks, the output is more determined by the inhibitions rather than excitations. We have more GABAergic channels, chloride channels, which are more inhibitory in nature. So our behavior, our intention is more sculpted and tuned by inhibitions, not by choosing. So if I choose A, it means that I have discarded path B. Because I discarded path B, I choose A. So brain helps in discarding certain things where automatically you choose one particular path that is available. So this have been shown in some lesion area like pre-SMA, where the planning happens and the readiness potential has been recorded. So any damage to this pre-SMA, right, you get what is called as utilization behavior. Now what is that utilization behavior? We can see. Suppose in a new environment, if you have any salient object, a person goes, he picks up, he utilizes that. So in this picture you can see an apple is there, a knife is there, a person comes in the room, he eats the apple. The another person comes, he says, why did you eat the apple? Because it is there. Were you hungry? No, I was not hungry. Then he says, apple belongs to you? I thought apples belongs to you. So without any inhibitory in nature, right, he just picks up and he eats. So this is called as utilization behavior. Mind you, this utilization behavior is what? The cause of present one of the emerging developmental disorder. We call it as what? ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity, child, because they cannot inhibit one particular thing, so that they can streamline their thought to one particular thing. So now the whole issue of the neuroscience, where it is taking the brain as more inhibitory, predominance is inhibition. So I think the consciousness is a concept of not for free will but free want. Why I should not? So because I negate all these things and I choose this. So process of understanding how do I negate or how do I not choose the multiple things that are available. What it determines what do I choose. So if you look at the whole neuroscience perspective, so even though it looks like a negative connotation, but it's very easy to understand the free will by No, not choosing the things. Thank you.
There's a lot of questions which emerge, I think, from this paper. I was thinking of intentionality and the unintended consequences of your intentions in the relationship, and the whole notion of creativity and the brain, and in terms of deletions and options. It's another paper on that. So finally, we have the last paper by Dr. Arvind S. The title is Causation, Free Will and Indeterminism in Quantum Physics. Dr. Arvind S. is working as a visiting scientist at Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. Previously, he had postdoctoral position at Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. His research area includes foundations of quantum mechanics and quantum information theory. We have now a question to present your paper, sir.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank organizers for inviting me here to present my view on free will, causality, and indeterminism. Previous speakers spoke about these topics from the philosophy perspective and the neuroscience perspective. I am a quantum physicist. I work in the foundations of quantum mechanics. So I'm going to speak in the framework of quantum mechanics, especially the first to define how within the foundations of quantum mechanics one defines the free will. And there's a proper definition and the quantifications, measures, everything about the free will. And also how do we define the determinism and what is the effect of these definitions on our understanding of the world, especially the quantum mechanical world. Okay, let's begin. We make observations. As Professor Mukunda sir and also Krishna madam in the morning sessions explained, our framework is focused on the observations. I would like to present one simple example of the game. Let's imagine that you have a box which contains one single button, and when you press that button, either a red ball emerges out from the box or blue ball emerges out from the box. This is all what you can do, and you are allowed to switch this button many number of times, some thousand times, and you collect the data. For example, at first you have seen the red ball, and the second trial you have the blue ball, and the third trial you have the same. So you have the data. This is what we call the data, and you have made observations. You are present there. You have a data, and then you calculate the probability. What is the probability with which the red ball is emerged, and what is the probability with the white ball is emerged. So let's see here, it's a 50-50%. So out of 1000, you have the 500 times this color, and another 500 times this color. You are not allowed to open the box. Now, by making the observations, what you have seen from just switching the button and collecting the data, you have to make some interpretations or some meaningful statements about the inner working of the box. Or before my observation, was the color of the ball was there? First of all, was the ball was there? Or what was the status of the color of the ball or the ball itself within the box? All these statements you have to make without opening the box, because nature doesn't allow you to open that box if you are in that situation. This is the framework which I am considering, and upon this framework which you have to make all the interpretations. This theory where you can control, where you can make the measurements. Even the quantum mechanics is we can make the measurements. It is on our control. In the classical mechanics is also one kind of operational theory where you are making the macroscopic observations. While the quantum mechanics is an operational theory where you can make the microscopic observations. When instead of the ball, if you have the balls, it is the classical world, and instead of the balls, if you have the electrons, neutrons, or protons, which you cannot directly observe, but still you can observe by making some measurement. That means there exists some instrument through which instrument you are making the observation. What is the basic elements of any observation? So you prepare something, just like a ball is preparing. When you switch the button, ball is coming out. So you prepare something, and then you make measurement. That means you make observations. So you make measurements, and you transfer from one system to another system. So this, and then you have the prediction. If it is a deterministic, you get with some with probability 1, you say whether it is occur or 0, not occur. But in case of the ball and the box experiment, 50-50%, so you have some prediction rule. So you have with some probability this happens. Or if you have some other system where you say 70% of the time you observe some color and 30% of the time you have observed some other color. This is what you have in the operational theory. From this, we want to make or interpret or model the reality behind our observation. In the sense, as I already told, you have to make some statements about the inner working of the box. So within the language of quantum mechanics, so we make an observations and we have a mathematical formalism of observations within the quantum mechanics, Hilbert space, observables, density matrices, etc., etc. And you have the Born rule and you get the probability statistics. And after getting the probability statistics, you need to make what is it saying about the nature's nature. That's all you have. You have an experimenter, and famous physicist Asher Perez used to say something. Quantum mechanics will never happen in a Hilbert space. It happens in a laboratory. So there is an experimenter, he has the data, all operational data. Now you have to make the interpretation. That is what your ontological theory. So you build up from your observation, you define a theory where the ontic state is there, and where you define an epistemic state, and you define some features about that theory. This is an ontological theory. And and then you make, then you start go on giving the implications or how it looks like according to your operational theory. And this, when you make this ontological theory, the important thing that it has to satisfy is reproducibility condition. That means whatever your ontological or model you make yourself should always exactly reproduce your operational theory statistics. It should not contradict your operational theories. This is one most important thing. Okay. With that introduction, I would like to, instead of one box, now I am making the two boxes. One is Alice. These are the familiar names used in the quantum foundations and the information theory, Alice and Bob. Imagine that the one person like Alice is staying in the Earth and another person is staying in Andromeda galaxy. They can be anywhere, just unique. I need this assumption. And each one, do I have a pointer? Okay. Each one, like M1 and M2, are the two buttons. Either they can switch the M1 or M2, and another one also has the two buttons, N1 and N2. So Alice can, and whenever they touch the button, there will be two outcomes, and I name these outcomes as +1 or -1. Instead of color, I am naming it as a +1 and -1, similar to the bomb. And then they do the experiment continuously, some 1,000 times or 10,000 times, and then they see together. When somebody is there, yes, and they ask, give me the data of Alice and give me the data of Bob, and they collect. What is the probability both Alice and Bob getting ++? When they both have chosen the M1 and N1. What is the probability of both of them getting plus or minus? Like this. Do you have the data? It is possible. Okay. So that's all. That means there will be total 16 probabilities. So there will be probability table as usual. So you have the probability table data. From this, I need to make the assumptions or some details about the theory. Now, I will try to make, and after seeing the data, it appears that all of the probabilities are probabilistic. In the sense that there always you get plus in this plus with some probability 1 by 3 plus minus with 2 by 3 like that. Then I make an assumption. Now I define an assumption of determinism. What do I mean by determinism? Of course, in the outside, when I do an experiment, I am getting the randomness. It is probabilistic. But given the chance of knowing the value of lambda, here is the lambda is the realistic state. In the operational theory, I just get the probabilities. But in a realistic understanding, given the chance, I don't know. For me, it is the person who is doing an experiment, for them it is random. But for the nature, so for there exists a lambda, which is the realistic, for them it is always taking 0 or 1 value. My ignorance about the lambda, my probabilistic assignment in the operational theory in your experiment is because of my ignorance, the experimentalist ignorance, or the theoreticians or the theoretical frameworks ignorance about the lambda. So this is the assumption of determinism. I am putting the assumption of determinism. And there is an important assumption called local causality. What do I mean by local causality? Alice is here and Bob is somewhere else in the Andromeda. So, whatever Alice does should not instantaneously should not affect Bob's result. Putting more precisely, the choice of Alice, whether Alice chooses M1 or M2, should not affect the statistics of Bob's outcome. This is the one assumption. If I head split it, in another, also I would say that the choice of Alice's measurement should not depend or should not affect the outcome of other party. So this is what I call the local causality. Something happening at one space-time should not affect. This comes from the relativity principle also. And nothing could fall faster than the light. Now comes the interesting thing, the free will. Inevitably I have to define it. So here I am defining my free will. How do I define the free will? See, the free will is defined, interestingly, the realistic value which exists within the box, that should not control my choice of M1 and M2. Experimenter has a completely freedom. It is free to choose M1 and M2. I have to make it mathematical because, at least in this framework, I have to make it mathematical, precise, in the sense that the realistic value which I am about to explain, that should not control my own choice. Understand? The way the free will is defined, the thing which I want to explain, that itself should not control my choice. So putting mathematically, this is what the definition of free will. M and N are the choice, condition and lambda should be independent of M and N. It should not depend. Means lambda means the ontic value should not control my choice or an experimental choice. So that is very important. You cannot do this experiment by giving each person just one observable. The minimum observable required at least for one person is always 2. So this experiment always requires the choice. So the observer experimentalist must have a choice. Well, I make these definitions and I do some mathematics by putting all these three together. Determinism and local causality and free will. I put these three together. I do some mathematics. And then we have the 16 probabilities. Under these assumptions, the 16 probabilities has to satisfy some number, some rule, this is simple mathematics. Okay, this means this is M1 and N1 is average probabilities. It's an average of two observables. You imagine that after you getting the statistics, okay, if this statistics has to satisfy, if these three principles, determinism and local causality and free will, if it satisfies, it has to the statistics should satisfy this value. Means the statistics should obey, the number should be less than or equals to 2. Well, now in this experiment, let's imagine that the source is something very special nature of called entangled states. It is prepared at the source, and one part of the state is into Alice, another part of this part is into Bob, and then the measurement is purely quantum mechanical in nature, and they make M1 and M2, and here also M1 and M2. And very interesting thing is that M1 and M2 must be non-commutative. This is very, very important. That means you have to choose the observable such that it should not be jointly measurable, because this non-commutativity is what it's in a way. This is like a necessity. Even if it's not, it is necessary. So you choose these things, and then you do the same. You have the data, and there also you get the plus or minus 1. So you have the data and calculate what's its value, and interestingly it goes to 2 root 2. Means it violates. This is experimentally. This experiment is being done to a very, very high accuracy. There were many loopholes. There used to be very many loopholes. It started around 78 or 80s. It started around 80s, and even from the 80s, even now, last year, 2017, they have completed all the loopholes and successfully carried out this experiment, and they saw this experimental value reaches to 2 root 2. So, what does it mean? So you have determinism and local causality and free will implies the bound. Now the negation of the bound means you go on experimentation and you see the negation of the bound. Then choice is yours. Which one? You have to leave one of these three. Because this is what your experiment is saying. If you are an empiricist, if you are obeying scientific principles, saying that whatever my observation says, so at least one of the things you have to reject. Means what it says that quantum mechanical predictions are incompatible with the combined three principles: determinism, local causality, and free will. So now, either you can choose to leave determinism, saying that before my observation nothing was there, even in the underlying deterministic theory, even in the underlying ontological theory, it was completely random. There was nothing, even if I would know that the value of lambda, even if you know the complete ontic theory, it is impossible, even at the ontic theory, impossible to predict anything. So it is completely, even in the ontic level, not only in my experimental level, even in the ontic level, it is completely random. This is the one answer. Or you have to say that the violation of local causality, in the sense that whatever I make, whatever I do, immediately affects something which is whatever at the distance. But the problem is will be incompatible with the relativity principles. So it will get into the troubles. And what about the free will? So one could say that. Thank you. So one could say that there is no free will. Okay. So it's called super deterministic. Everything is super determined. Everything is determined. Even your choice is determined. So it is just like a drama. Right? You have given. It is like a drama by a director. So who says that to choose everything. So you will definitely see the violation. So there is nothing magic. It is your choice. It is your culture. So depending upon that. There are many interpretations comes into the nature. So one person says, whichever your choice, philosophical choice, for example, Bohemian mechanics, it is realistic, means deterministic, position is deterministic, momentum is deterministic, everything is deterministic, but it is not local. So instantaneously affects. And similarly to the collapse theorist, which is also realistic. And there is something called a relative state interpretation, and which is slightly relaxes the determinism part and many words interpretation. It is interesting. It also kind of relaxes the realistic. And then cubism. This is one which is a recent one, which is very interesting. What it relaxes is the determinism. Means you have to pay something, and it goes on. If there is Copenhagen, there are many others. There is, anybody can, something you have to leave. There is no other choice. So that is your philosophical choice. This is what quantum mechanics says. So this is the very radical difference between the quantum and classical. So when it comes to the classical, and if you want to explain the reality under behind the quantum mechanical observation, it says that you have to sacrifice something. Which one you sacrifice is your choice, but inherently you have to sacrifice something. These are the few things which, whatever I explained, I have been working on this. Thank you.
I was just thinking about entanglement. So, when you try to disentangle, my curiosity is, why is it that it leads to further entanglement? So you want to disentangle things. I have never been able to understand that. And secondly, the relationship between ontic and ontological questions. When you introduce the element of time as Heidegger had done, then what happens to this relationship? We can discuss. I've been, in fact, requested that we are going to skip the Q&A session. It will happen over a cup of tea. So thank you very much for your patience.
So I won't take much time since we've skipped the Q&A for tea as mentioned by Reddy. I'll request our Director, Venerable Geshe to present our speakers and our esteemed chairperson with the souvenir. Professor, I requesting G. Dr. Ravindra Nagendra. And Dr. S. Aravinji. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Keshila. We'll start the next session sharp at 3:15. We'll try to start it sharp at 3:15. So I request everybody to gather back by then. Thank you.